Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button if you guys are enjoying the content that we're throwing up. And make sure you guys hit the like button if you enjoy the video. And yeah, let's begin. Okay, so originally I was going to record Shazam, but I changed my mind. So instead, we're going to explain the Red Room program from Marvel Comics. And we're probably jumping the gun because Black Widow doesn't really come out, I think, until the end of April. But it's fine. At the very least, it's out there so people kind of have something to reference, at least, getting ready to go into the whole thing. So the Red Room program in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is super clandestine, right? Like, we don't really know anything about it outside of the few little images that we saw from Avengers Age of Ultron, the flashbacks, things that Black Widow experienced, and whatever we learned about it in the movie. But in the comics, it's a lot more complex. Now, there was the way the Red Room was originally depicted in Marvel Comics, and then there's the way that it changed. And what I mean by that is when you go into the original depiction of the Red Room program, this was basically Russia's answer to like Weapon X, is really what it was. Really, Weapons Plus more than Weapon X, right? So when it comes to this, when it comes to Weapons Plus, it's kind of weird, right? Like if you read Daniel Way's Wolverine Origins after the events of House of M, when Wolverine gets all his memories back, Weapons Plus was created by Romulus, which I think was a terrible idea. But if you go and you read Grant Morrison's new X-Men that launched in 2001, you learn that Weapons Plus was basically created by John Sublime. Now, the reason behind it is kind of weird. John Sublime was this bacterial entity that could jump from one host to the next, but eventually learned that it couldn't bond itself and control mutants. And so as a result of that, when you got into the 1930s in Marvel Comics, and in terms of the Marvel Universe itself, not in the real world, the technology was available for humanity to start essentially containing and controlling the mutant threat. And so this kind of broke off in two ways, right? You had Weapons Plus, and then in the 1960s, you would have Project Wide Awake. But the idea behind this was that John Sublime wanted to essentially find a way to contain and control mutants. And so the best way to do that was to essentially create super soldiers. And so according to Grant Morrison, you had Weapon Zero. That's not super important. What is important is that word had basically reached the ears of John Sublime, of a guy in Germany who had the ability to create super soldiers, who had a formula for it, of course, Abraham Erskine. And so what you got is you had Nick Fury and his Howling Commandos who were tasked with traveling to Germany, capturing Abraham Erskine, or really like, taking him from Germany to the States, and then in turn developing super soldiers. And so as a part of this whole Weapons Plus program designed to create super soldiers that could contain and control the mutant population, you got Captain America, you got Weapon 1. Now, for the most part, it's speculation, but the general idea here is that Captain America, what was going to happen is World War II was a test bed. It was a question of how effective can this super soldier program be? The issue is that Abraham Erskine was killed by a German assassin, and then Captain America, while performing admirably during World War II, was believed to have been dead when he was frozen in ice. The idea was to take Captain America, once he came back, basically wipe his memories and then install new memories about a fake backstory, so on and so forth, and then send him forward as a whole new generation of super soldiers. But with Captain America basically vanishing, the super soldier serum being gone or being destroyed, what this meant is that Weapons Plus basically went forward with like Weapon 2 and Weapon 3 and Weapon 4, so on and so forth, all the way up to Weapon X, which of course, as you guys know, is Wolverine. After him came, of course, like the Stepford Cuckoos and Deadpool and Phantom X and different things like that. But the long and short of this is that around the same time that was happening, about 20 years after, really, you got the foundation of the Avengers. And so as a result of this, Russia really kind of, mirroring the real world Cold War, which is to say the idea of Russia and, or I guess the USSR and the United States kind of battling in terms of capitalism versus communism throughout the world. The USSR responded in kind to Weapons Plus, and they created the Red Room Project. Now, the Red Room Project, in terms of this being kind of an answer to Weapons Plus, was changed entirely with Ed Brubaker's run of Captain America. And what he did is he came along and said, it's a whole different beast now. That's one of the reasons why Brubaker's run of Captain America is so critical and so important, is because the entire spy game of Marvel Comics was changed with Brubaker's run. And with him basically bringing back the Winter Soldier and introducing the idea that Bucky Barnes was basically trained to be the guy who would do the things that Captain America just couldn't do, right? When Bucky Barnes was first introduced, he was just some kid who stumbled across Steve Rogers changing into his Captain America costume and then blackmailed him into allowing him to become Steve Rogers' sidekick. When Brubaker came along, he said, no. The way this played out is Bucky Barnes was an assassin, right? He was trained to kill, torture, all that kind of stuff. Steve Rogers wouldn't do any of that, so Bucky Barnes did it instead. The result was that when Brubaker brought him back, what he said was that when Bucky was quote unquote killed back in the 1940s in the Captain America comics, that what had really happened is he had basically been knocked off the plane, he was taken by the Russians and then transformed into the Winter Soldier. It was their first real foray, as part of their Department X, and creating a kind of Wolverine-esque character. And so the result of this is that with the success of the Winter Soldier, the USSR wanted to take it a step further. And when they wanted to say, okay, well then let's create a woman who can be the world's best assassin. And the reality is that it made the most sense because when you're talking about creating a female assassin, she can achieve things that guys can't do. You know, guys for the most part are, I think, more easily seduced than women are. And what this did is it led to essentially the taking of 28 different orphans, and then in turn they were inducted into the Red Room Project to essentially be trained to become assassins. Now the reason why Natasha Romanov is so interesting is because there's a bunch of different origins for her character, and not even she really knows what her true origin is, because when it comes to the Red Room, they took a lot of the Wolverine scenario insofar as they would wipe their mind and install fake memories, and so they never really knew what their true backstory was, right? And the reason why is because that was all the rage back in the day. Wolverine made that popular in a lot of different ways, right? Wolverine didn't know his own history. That's what made him interesting and made him unique. You know, that's the reason why Daniel Way's run of Wolverine Origins is so landmark, because you get the whole true story of James Howlett's character. But that's the reason why that happened, is because it was a popular thing to do. The long and short of this is that with Natasha Romanov, one of the origins is that she's actually related to the Romanov dynasty, right? The czars who were basically killed during the rise of the Bolsheviks in 1915 during the Bolshevik Revolution, or maybe it was 1917, during World War I. The reason why Russia left the World War I conflict, because the rise of the Bolsheviks basically saw the ousting of the monarchy, the execution of the czars, including, you know, Anastasia, all that kind of stuff. And Natasha was believed to have somehow been tied to that royal family. But regardless, by whatever manner and whatever means, the nature of the Red Room is to essentially take women and then turn them into prodigious assassins by offering like superhuman augmentation, right? So increasing their strength, speed, agility, offering some measure of a healing factor, different things like that, and then sending them out into the world and having them carry out different campaigns for any number of different reasons, right? You know, sometimes it's to basically expand the sphere of communism. At least that was the idea when the program was launched under Joseph Stalin during and in the immediate aftermath of World War II, different things like that. And then all the way up to the modern day, if, you know, for what's left of the program, carrying out whatever tasks and things are necessary for the Russian government. Now, the companion to the Red Room Project is the Winter Guard, right? And that's what you guys are going to see in the Black Widow movie. You're going to see Red Guardian. He was the leader of the Winter Guard. The Winter Guard was essentially Russia's Avengers team, but the Winter Guard was a group that would kind of operate somewhat alongside the Black Widow Project, insofar as they would be like the front face, the public eye, they go out and do things, and then like while they're doing their thing, the Black Widows may go in and achieve some particular task or take out somebody or something along those lines. That's one of the ways that it kind of worked, which is kind of interesting if you go back and you read like 1980s Marvel Comics, is like the Winter Guard would kind of be like the smoke and mirrors. While all that's going on, while that noise is being made over there, the Red Room would go and do their thing. They would send a Black Widow. But that's what made the Black Widow so intriguing, is because you could walk into a room and never know who a Black Widow is, right? Never know if like the woman that you're talking to is genuinely interested in you, or if for whatever reason she wants to get information out of you and then will do whatever she needs to do to achieve that. And that's what made the Red Room so dangerous, is because when it comes to the clandestine side of Marvel, you've got groups like the Hand, right? The Hand, I always talk about them. The Hand is probably one of the most dangerous groups out there. The Hand is one of these organizations where they'll send in like one of their best soldiers, right? And they'll send somebody into a room, or, you know, they'll take somebody out, and then like guards will come running in, right? Well, as far as the guards are aware, this person died somehow by mysterious means. The windows are locked from the inside, the door was locked from the inside, there's no indication anybody ever got in, but somehow they're dead, right? Either that, or the Hand takes you out in full force, right? They just send like 500 soldiers and they go to take you out. Wolverine actually fought a whole bunch of them. But again, the Red Room is kind of one of these clandestine organizations, right? And a lot of different people have had involvement with the Red Room. For example, Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier, he had various missions that went alongside individuals in the Red Room. He helped train Natasha Romanov. Wolverine did the same thing. He was a trainer for Natasha Romanov as well, taught her a lot of different tactics on how to fight, different things along those lines. So a lot of people who are part of that spy game in Marvel Comics have had involvement with the Red Room, but they're pretty cool. It's just kind of Russia's super secret assassin spy group, more or less. They're very prodigious, exceedingly dangerous, and pretty capable. The real question to ask here, this is the question I want to know: who would win in a fight, like the Dora Milaje from Black Panther or the Black Widows? That's what I want to know. And I kind of feel like it would be the Black Widows. The Dora Milaje are cool, but they don't really have the kind of augmentations that the Black Widows have. Nonetheless, that's more or less them kind of explained. That's really sort of the nature of them as a group. Just consider them just a super clandestine spy organization carrying out like Black Ops, sweat work missions, things like that, or just sneaking in. You know, they take on all different kinds of missions. They're some of the best fighters, or some of the best shooters. They're highly capable, right? They're exceedingly deadly. So with that being said, guys, we're gonna bring this video to an end. If you guys have more questions, post them down in the comments section. I'll peruse the comments. Once we get into our explanation on Natasha Romanov, that's when we'll start getting more into like the chronology of the Red Room and how it kind of changed over the years. This is more or less just an explanation of what it is and how it functions. But yeah, we'll tie that in heavily, because the Red Room is a huge part of our history, right? You know, especially when you start going into Black Widow Deadly Origins, when you go into Black Widow Volume 3, you start getting like a lot of of these really, really cool stories that sort of focus on her backstory and her time in the group, because for a long time, you didn't really know what the origin was, you didn't know how far reaching it was, and you didn't know anything about the Red Room. The Red Room, I don't think, was actually introduced until 1998, right? So it's interesting and it's kind of intriguing. But we'll get more into like the nuances of how it impacts Romanov and how it affects her life, and when we get into explaining her character. But with that being said, guys, we're gonna bring this video to an end. If you are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button and become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like, and I will catch you all later. Oh, you guys said peace. Peace. I want to say thank you to all of the new patrons who have joined patreon.com/comicsexplained. I want to give a shout out to Henry, Young Typhon, Elias G, David JS, Jacob H, Ben, John H, Jason C, Austin S, Austin H, James O, Chris T, Matt N, Jeff R, Joey M, Stephen Z, Sloth Like Lou, David C, John H, Lean and Mean. That guy asks questions all the time. Adam K, Genosis 916. I want to say thank you to all of you all. This list is growing all the time. Thank you for joining the Patreon.